All right, so we're back with our dummy document here. And what we're going to talk about now are page breaks. All right, so let me go ahead and import my last hurrah. Skip. All right, we're going to go ahead and run our scripts because what's the first thing we should do after we place our document is to run those scripts. All right, you don't want to get to the point where you just totally forget. All right, so the good thing is this is my document. I use styles properly and like every single client out there. So I know that if I delete heading 1, which should be all my chapter titles, if I delete heading 1 and assign it to chapter title, all of my all my chapter 1, chapter 2, chapter 3 is now going to be my chapter title style, which is what I want it to be. All right, so normal is the same way. I'm going to delete out normal and change it to chapter text. And so now all my text becomes chapter text. And then I'm just going to set the first para, and I'm going to set all of my pages to our A header. I'm not going to worry about balancing my pages here because this is not anywhere close between to being the final document, and I don't want to update it in InDesign. So let's do first paragraph cap 2. So I'm just going to go through and set the pages. Imagine if we didn't have to balance pages, how quickly formatting would be. All right, so I'm not going to do this entire document because it would just be a waste of time for you to sit here. I am going to tell chapter title to keep options on next page, and then we're just going to drop that B to here. All right, this is where, all right, when, just a tip, if you train your clients to add in this format, I usually do format between greater than less than signs. That way I can search for any areas that I need to format specially. So these are just emails and signs that I want to format a special way. So I just make a note to myself for format, and that way I can search for a greater than or less than sign, and I'll be able to find all my notes. I'm slowly training my repeat clients to put things in these, but most people just don't do it. So, but I do it for myself because I am my own best and worst client, right? All right, so anyway, I'm not even going to worry about these, and we are going to delete out everything after, just so we'll have a small document to work with. All right, so here is our book, and let's say I'm done with it, and I am now ready to do the ebook. All right, so let's create the contents page. We're going to update table of contents. We're going to tweak it because we do not need it to be numbered, and we do not need the dot leaders to come in with the page number. So we are going to go to table of contents styles. We're going to edit it. We are going to say yes, more options, no page number. All right, because we do not need them for the ebook. We're going to update, and there they are. Then we're just going to center them, and there we are. Now, something's weird here. For some reason, this came through with bold, and I do not want that. We'll just leave it in, but something got tweaked in my style somehow. All right, so you're like, oh my goodness, what happened here? My subtitle is on the next page. So what happened? Well, remember how in my document everything kind of works together? So if we look at chapter title is based on chapter text. So if I change my font for chapter text, let's say I usually use ITC Esprit for my books. So I'm going to change that, redefine style, and with ITC Esprit, there is a different, it's not just italic, it's called book italic. So we have to update our italic, and there you go. All right, so what happened is why is book title now like this? Why is the subtitle now like this? Well, let's take a look at subtitle. It is based on book title, and as you see, it should have changed. Should have changed to ITC Esprit, but it did not. I don't know why is that. All right, so we'll see that Adobe Garamond Pro is currently the book title, and chapter title, and the book title is based on chapter title. So let's go look at our chapter title. I set these chapter titles, I just a few minutes ago, I did the keep option where chapter title is on next page. So that affects all of these things that start with chapter title. So we know book title is based on chapter title, so it now has that keep option of on next page. Then subtitle is based on title page, which is based on chapter title. So any changes that we make to the chapter title are going to affect those. So that is why this is on a new page. So we are going to, and I'll show you this. All right, so that did change to Esprit. I'm not quite sure why these didn't change to Esprit, because technically it should have. All right, so I'm just going to go keep options and take that off, and then I'm going to update the style. All right, and then this should be italic. All right. All right, so now, ebooks, what are we doing? Let me set this to italic too. That's when you use a font that has, hold on, I'm kind of stuck in my desk. When you use a font that has, uses weird names for bold, like some of them use, like there may be a hierarchy of boldness, like black, heavy, bold, semi-bold. You have to update your styles, and some of them may be like 56 black. You have to think about your styles in the template. You may have to tweak them based on the font, so that's just something to know. All right, so let's get back to this. All right, I am just going to do a quick export. We're going to save over. All right. So everything is coming on its own page, which is what we wanted. However, when we crack open the ebook file, extract, oh, sorry, crack open the ebook file, we got to convert it to an ePUB, epub.zip. And we are going to extract all. And we're going to look at it. We have the cover HTML, we have the TOC, and then we have one document. Now, Rick had a similar issue in that he had a couple of documents, but the bulk of the book was in one document. Why is that? But why in Adobe Digital Editions are those page breaks showing? Let's give it a minute. Let's open up Dreamweaver to look at this. I'm going to quickly look at that ePUB in I'm dropping the ePUB in Kindle Previewer so we can see it as well. I really have a fast computer. I don't know why this is going so slow. And it's so short too. All right, come on, baby. All right, so here it looks the same way. Everything looks like it's split into pages. Well, it's because both Kindle Previewer and Adobe Digital Editions breaks things down. It actually pays attention to that particular code that, oh, I forgot. I hate when things change. You update your versions and everything changes and you got to go back to what you had. All right, so if we open the ePUB, that one file, we'll notice that there are no page breaks. Everything is one long document, okay? But if we look in Adobe Digital Editions as well as Kindle Previewer, the page breaks are actually coming through. So why is that? Well, in the CSS that comes through, let's look at the CSS. We have, oh, and I even brought in the fonts. Shame on me. InDesign puts these page breaks in the code. So page break after is auto, page break before is auto. So everything is auto, which means there's really no page break. Auto, auto, auto. All right, here we get into it. So our headings, chapter title, the page break before is set to always. So that is why these pages actually break because of that. However, not all ebook devices read these. So on a certain ebook device, there will be no page breaks in doing it this way. All right. Now, InDesign, you can do it a couple of different ways. If you use an InDesign book document, which I only use in cases where I have a novel that may be 200,000 words, and having that novel in one big document may be a little cumbersome. Or if I am doing a nonfiction book that is pretty complex, that's when I will use the InDesign book document and save out each individual chapter as an individual file, and then I will merge everything together with an InDesign book document. I think I have a video on that somewhere if you have any questions about that. I do not use that method too often because it's annoying. It's a pain in the butt to keep styles consistent, and I'm constantly changing styles, and I will only use that in special circumstances. But when you do it that way, it does break out the ebook in individual pages. So it wouldn't come through as a big long document. If you had chapter 1 and chapter 1 file, it would come through as chapter 1, as an XHTML chapter 1. And then chapter 2 would be in its own file, etc., etc. Now, if you do not use the book document, it comes through as one flowing ebook. Now, there's another way in InDesign too, if you use the articles panel. I think I did that once when I was learning 10 years, or I don't know how many ever years I decided to finally convert from doing ebooks manually to actually using an InDesign file and cleaning it up. And so you can set up your order using an articles panel and it will bring it in that way. But that was, my head could never wrap around that part, so I never do it that way. So that's why I will use since I have everything in one text frame, I will use the split document for ePUB. So if you do not tell InDesign where to split your document up, it will come through as one continuous XHTML file. All right. How can we not get it to do that? Now, it's if you did a book and you didn't realize it and you did a lot of cleanup, you will need to go back in and add these page breaks back in, because if you notice that you did that, don't delete these out. Just leave them in. It won't look right on every single ebook device, but at least your page breaks will do that. But if you delete these out and you still have everything in one massive ebook, one massive file, it will not come through properly. All right. So what I just did is I actually deleted, let's actually delete all the page breaks. All right, so let's bring up our Find menu. We want, I'm just going to copy this in our Find menu. We only want it to replace in our current document. Now, I want it to delete out all those page breaks, so we are going to replace half of this style with our little code that says, you know, whatever is what we're going to look for is page dash break dash whatever is here, and it may be different because we'll see page break after and page break before, avoid, always. It's going to find all of those by using this code, and then we're going to end it because it ends with this colon. So that's what we're going to tell it to look for, and we are going to tell it to replace it with nothing. We're going to just basically delete them all out. So we're going to do a replace all. And why didn't it do it? Let's do that again. Because I updated and regular expressions is not checked. All right, so this is what's called a regular expression. It's basically a search query code that helps you find strings of text that are not exact but similar enough, or strings of text between two certain things. But you have to tell Dreamweaver to use it. And since I updated Dreamweaver recently, it was now unchecked. So we need to go in and check use regular expressions. And now anytime I go into Dreamweaver until it updates, it should be checked. So we're going to do a replace all. Now it deleted every single instance of our page breaks in our CSS. All right, so now let's take a look at this ebook. We're going to repackage it. Now that we made changes, and I'm just going to call it epub.epub because it doesn't really matter. This is playing around. We're going to open it. And now all our page breaks are gone because we deleted them. So what next? What can we do to correct this so those page breaks will come through in every single ebook device that is available? Well, we need to break them into individual pages. And to do that, we need to go back to our InDesign file, and we're going to tell InDesign to break for chapter titles. All right. Now, InDesign already knows to start the paragraph on the next page wherever the chapter title style is applied. So why doesn't it do it for ePUB? Well, when it converts, export things into an ePUB, it does not pay attention to this except for that page break code that we delete out of the CSS. All right. So if this says to create a page break, that's where that code is going to come in. But since I recommend deleting that code out because it kind of bogs down the CSS, and some devices do not read that code, we need to tell it to split it another way. And so if we go on the Styles menu for chapter title and go to Export Tagging, Split Document is where you tell it to create a page break. So whenever InDesign is creating the ePUB, anytime it comes to a chapter title, it's going to put, starting with that chapter title until the next chapter title, into a new XHTML page. So this is what we need. Now, one more step, when you go to export, you need to tell InDesign to split the document based on paragraph style export tags. Now, I used to create an ebook and I would put this break code in at the beginning of every page where I knew I wanted a page break. Then I could tell InDesign to break it on this miscellaneous underscore break character. But I am in the habit now of just putting the exports within the styles to prevent myself from having all these breaks throughout. And now InDesign will create that document. I can delete out those page breaks in the CSS since they don't work on every single device. And now I have my document flowing properly. And if we were to if we were to convert it to a zip file, crack it open, and look at the individual pages, which we'll go ahead and do now, and delete out that page break in the CSS, we will not have to worry about it not having page breaks. All right, so ePUB2, oops, I'm going to rename this to ePUB2.zip. And I hope this is making sense. It's one of those things, I totally understand it in my head. So if you could get in my head and understand it, that's great. It's just kind of a hard concept to explain, so I hoped I explained it okay. All right, so now here is the new ePUB we created, and the CSS still has those page breaks because this is new. So we're going to go in and delete those because now we can, because everything is in its own individual page. I didn't mean to put anything here. So we're going to replace all. All right. And close and save. So now all those page breaks are gone out of CSS. And we can look. This should be chapter 1, chapter 2, chapter 3, and chapter 4. So here is chapter 4 on its own page. Chapter 3, own page. Chapter 2, own page. And chapter 1. Now, if you have a book document, it would have automatically done this. Okay. But since I don't use book documents that often, you have to think about where you're going to break it. So why does InDesign do it this way? I don't know. Maybe one day those page breaks will carry through every single device out there and we don't have to worry about that. Or honestly, if you have a large document and it generates the whole entire book in one XHTML page, but yet you have a mistake in the code several times somewhere and it won't validate and you have to go in, I could not imagine looking through probably tens, maybe even hundreds of thousands of lines of code just because everything came through one long XHTML file. So that is why I break my document down into individual XHTML files, because it's easier to manage, especially if you're making changes throughout your ebook. And you know, and I guess I'm old school. I started creating ebooks by hand coding. And this is the way I've always done it, where, you know, each chapter was basically its own individual XHTML page. So that's the way I do it. Rick, I hope that helps and helps you with your particular issue. Basically, I'd recommend going back into the InDesign file um, and adding those split ePUBs and making sure you tell it to split ePUB based on paragraph styles when you do the export. So that will be a way to correct it. Now, there's the only way you can correct it based on what you have now is to go back in and add those page breaks to the CSS, but just keep in mind, not every device is going to read those page breaks. And the reason why I delete them out of the CSS, you may say, well, what does it matter if there's a page break in there? But can't you just leave it in there? Well, you can, but what happens if you leave them in there on an iPad, if you also have your document split out by pages, so you have a XHTML for chapter 1, you have an XHTML page for chapter 2, so they're all split into individual pages, and you leave that page break code in there, an iPad is going to read that as a double page break, and it's going to put a blank page in your book. So that's the reason why I delete them out. Only on an iPad. But I have been in the mindset of creating ebooks that work universally across all the different devices. So the goal of a good ebook designer is to make sure that ebook looks good on an iPad, it looks good on a Nook, it looks good on a Kindle Fire, it looks good on a Kindle iInk device, it looks good on the Kindle app, which is very hard to do. And also the Kindle app on the computer versus the Kindle app on the phone and how it looks. So the goal of a good ebook designer is to make it look uniform across as best as you can across multiple devices. All right, so I hope that helps, Rick, your problem. I'm actually going to stop this video, and then I am going to do another video on a little quirk, and hopefully this will all come about. And if you, I don't recommend watching the next video if you only format fiction, but if you format nonfiction and you have a book with end notes, you might want to stay tuned for our next video because we are going to talk about the quirks of endnotes and exporting them to ePUB in InDesign. All right, stay tuned.